Hey, what's going on, guys? What is happening, everybody? Good morning. You guys have tuned into Rules for Rebels, and today is Friday, February 10th. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in today's video. We're going to be talking about the markets. Markets closed down yesterday. Crypto closed down pretty heavily. A lot of talk of crackdown on cryptos. The government seems to be keen to be going after cryptos. We're hearing rumors from the CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, that the government wants to outlaw retail investors from being able to stake, or at least crack down on platforms being able to offer staking. Some people think this is a good thing. Some people think this is a bad thing. We're going to be talking about the media, housing prices, layoffs, how the beer cough disrupted society. I think a lot of us think things are back to normal, but I think things aren't back to normal, and they may never go back to normal. That really disrupted society. Bill Gates says ChatGPT will change the world as we know it, and a whole lot more. So let's kind of get into this stuff. Before we start, shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Quick Fix Synthetic, quickfixsynthetic.com. Check out their flagship Quick Fix Synthetic Urine. Can definitely help you pass a drug test. If you have a mouth swab test, like Amazon offers, they have a mouthwash that'll help you pass mouth swab tests. If you got a hair follicle test, they have a shampoo that will help you pass a hair follicle test. They also have cleansing beverages, things you can spike your urine with, and a whole lot more. We'll link to them in the description box below. So check them out, Quick Fix Synthetic Urine. They offer fast shipping and have a 100% customer satisfaction guarantee. Let's kind of start by talking about the markets. Markets had some pretty wild swings yesterday. The Dow closed down 250 points. At one point, the Dow was up about 300 points. We had about a 500-point swing. And nobody can really explain why this happens. The markets don't really seem to make any sense. What else do we have? NASDAQ finished down 1.1%, and the S&P 500 finished down 0.88%. Crypto was down fairly large. BNB down on the 24 hours, 7%. Ethereum down 5%, and Bitcoin down 4%. The government seems keen to crack down on crypto. There's talk that the SEC is going to declare Ethereum a security, and I think it is pretty clear. People in the crypto community don't want Ethereum to be a security, but I think it's pretty clear the way it was rolled out, the way it was issued, the fact that I'm having a brain fart. The creator, the unicorn shirt guy, the fact that he's kind of the CEO of Ethereum. There's so many things about Ethereum that make it a security. I think a lot of people are hoping because it's been going on for so long, it'll just be allowed to continue. But it may be inevitable that Ethereum is considered to be a security. Kraken just settled with, I believe it was the SEC. They paid a $30 million fine, and they also agreed to stop their staking program. And we're starting to see other crypto exchanges either lower staking amounts or get rid of their staking programs. Not really sure what the government's angle is here. Like with some of the platforms that have gone under, that were lending platforms or offered staking, are they quote unquote trying to protect people from that? Not really clear, but it'll be interesting to see what winds up happening in crypto in the coming weeks. This is just kind of an aside or kind of an interesting thought, but we're starting to see and I think in yesterday's video or 2 days ago we talked about NBC and MSNBC. 200 people wound up going on strike or were picketing. The media is suffering. BuzzFeed laying off people. Washington Post laying off people. It's no wonder people don't trust the media. It's no wonder people don't go to the mainstream media for their news, and because of that, the mainstream media is suffering. One thing you got to keep in mind: 10 out of 10 scientists will agree with who's funding them. I would say the same thing probably holds true for the media. The media gets a lot of handouts and grants and money from the government. I guess because the government thinks that it's important that citizens are informed. But if the government is informing you, you got to keep in mind that they're probably informing you with propaganda. And it's kind of interesting how the media lies to us about certain stories, and then they can't lie to us forever, right? Because eventually people will kind of figure things out. Eventually you can't cover up these lies, and eventually the people would be wise to it. And if the media was always wrong, if the media was always spouting lies, people would distrust it even more. I think already like 74% of people, 88% of people, something like that, don't trust the media. But when you look at Ukraine, we've been told Ukraine is winning, Ukraine is winning, Ukraine is winning, and now it's slowly starting to kind of steep out that Ukraine isn't winning and they're probably going to lose, and they're finally kind of starting to let that truth out of the bag. There was another, housing market. Housing market's fine. Remember, we had like hundreds of stories written about how mortgage rates are down for 3 weeks in a row, 4 weeks in a row, 5 weeks in a row, 6 weeks in a row. But now that mortgage rates are back on the rise, we're not hearing anything about it. The media isn't really hammering on the stories about how property values in certain states are down 10%, 15%, 20%. How in San Jose, the average home is selling for $300,000 less. But the media is just now kind of starting to let that story trickle out as well. And I think as we get further into 2023, a lot of the things that many of us have known for quite a long time are going to kind of finally start coming to light. Remember, inflation was transitory. It wasn't going to stick around. And eventually, inflation is a big problem. We're going to start to see a lot of these truths kind of slip out. Let's talk a little bit about layoffs. So one of the biggest layoffs announced within the past day or so, Yahoo is laying off 20% of their staff. I believe they just laid off 1,600 with more layoffs to come. I think a lot of people say, Yahoo's kind of a dead company. Like everything Yahoo touches kind of turns to crap. I don't know if it was Yahoo who bought MySpace, but Yahoo has bought a lot of other media platforms, kind of hoping to turn their company around. And it's pretty much always been a failure. I think Yahoo had bought Tumblr, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Tumblr kind of crashed and burned after that, even though it's technically still around. But I think a lot of people probably aren't surprised to see Yahoo doing layoffs. But one thing you have to look at, I think a lot of us weren't surprised when Snapchat or Twitter or Facebook laid people off. But now you're starting to see companies like Dell and Google and other companies who seem more stable, who didn't necessarily have that hyper growth during the beer cough period. Now you're starting to see these layoffs starting to affect other companies. And it's easy to write it off as, that's only 500 employees, that's only 1,600 employees. But you have to keep in mind, if somebody has a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend who lives with them or relies on them for income, that 1,600 all of a sudden now turns into, 3,200. If there's a family of four, that 1,600 turns into 4,000. When 1,600 people are laid off, that's 1,600 households that are affected. That's 1,600 households that are going to have to cut back on their groceries, maybe not take a vacation, and that's less money going into the economy. We've talked numerous times about we have a debt-based economy. We have a consumer spending economy. 70% of our economy is consumer spending, and if people stop spending money, that starts to hurt and affect other areas of the economy. When those employees get laid off, that's that many less people who can continue to support businesses. If we look at tech layoffs for the year, this year, thus far, we've had 334 tech companies that have done layoffs. And it was kind of crazy. I think in the video we did yesterday, I think the number was like 97,000, 98,000 tech workers laid off. And I'd kind of joked about not a celebration, right? I don't want to celebrate people being laid off, but I kind of thought about, we hit 100,000 layoffs for the day. Obviously, we just kind of make round numbers significant. Even in Bitcoin, 10,000 is a big number, 20,000 is a big number. I thought it would take us another couple weeks to hit over 100,000 layoffs. And literally from yesterday's video to today's video, we're now at 101,617 tech workers laid off for the year. A couple other layoffs to report in the last 24 hours. Deliveroo laid off 350. Olive AI laid off 215. GitLab laid off 130. Bark laid off 125. Verif laid off 66. GitHub laid off 10% of their employees and has decided to go fully remote. WeTrade going under, laid off 100% of the employees. GoDaddy 530, and I talked about this one the other day, but Affirm 500. Let's talk, this is a little bit of a bigger picture discussion, but let's talk about how the Mexican beer cough disrupted society, right? Like, I think most of us consider the Mexican beer cough to kind of be done and over. Joe Biden actually declared it over months ago, even though he's continued funding for beer cough initiatives through May 11th. I believe the Mexican beer cough officially, according to the federal government, is over on May 11th. And even though a lot of businesses have opened back up, a lot of people have gone back to work, a lot of people have gone back to the office, I think a lot of us consider it to be done and over. It's kind of changed the stock market and how the stock market moves. It's changed how people invest. It's changed how people work. It's changed how people live. We talked in the video the other day, right? It was like, we shared a story within the past couple of days. A lot of people have moved, a lot of people during the beer cough moved to rural areas, tourist areas, near national parks. A lot of these people have gone back to their home areas, have returned back to offices, but the problems they created in these areas still remained. And, it's kind of like a 9/11 type event in the sense that it kind of shook It shook our sense of security. It shook our sense of optimism. It made us more divided, and that may never return to normal. We know that a lot of kids are developmentally way behind, especially young children. A lot of kids are way behind in reading and math because of going to school remotely for 2 years. Attendance at schools is down. It's disrupted society in a lot of different ways. And one of the biggest disruptions, we've talked about, there's still labor shortages and the labor market is still kind of messed up from the Mexican beer cough, but it's not as bad as it was. Like, it's kind of returned to normal. A lot of the supply chain disruptions and shortages have kind of gone back to normal. But we talk about the quality of the products you're buying, the quality of the food that you're buying and eating, that, the quality has gone down. We're getting smaller sizes of items that we order. And overall, it just seems like customer service and people caring and giving a shit about their jobs has gone down. And I had kind of an analogy. We're heading into Super Bowl weekend here. And, in the playoffs, a lot of teams will earn themselves a bye week. A bye week is when you automatically move on to the next week and you don't have to play. Now, some people think that a bye week is a good thing because you have a week off to kind of relax and heal, but a lot of teams don't want a bye week. Why don't they want a bye week? Because it's kind of hard when you have a week off to then kind of get back into the swing of things, to play with the same intensity. When you have too much time off, you kind of fall out of that mindset. You lose that kind of hardness. And any of you guys who've taken a long vacation, right? You go on vacation for a week or two, and you come back to work, and it's kind of hard to settle back into things, right? You're not used to waking up in the morning. You're not used to having to think all day. You're not used to the long hours, and it's kind of hard to settle back in. And when you look at the Mexican beer cough, we had a period of 2+ years when people were working from home, people were doing things kind of half-ass. Everybody kind of got used to lower expectations. If you felt like being lazy or you didn't feel like doing something and something dropped through the cracks at your company, you could just blame it on the beer cough, blame it on supply chain issues. And I feel like that kind of hasn't gone away. There's kind of this reminiscent thing sticking around where people don't care. There's a laziness. There's a lackadaisicalness. And even though, overwhelmingly things are kind of back to normal, it really depends on what area of the country you're in. If you're in Texas or Florida, the beer cough may have never even been that big of a deal for you, except when you got on a plane or had to enter a federal building or a national park or something like that. But in other areas of the country, things are still not really back to normal. I saw the CDC director is still defending the thing on your face mandates, even after numerous studies have come out saying that they do little to nothing. We have many private institutions that still have mitigation measures in place. And Zero Hedge had an interesting article about this, kind of talking about what a mess New York still is. New York City fired 2,000 teachers because they refused to get the thing. Now they have a teacher shortage. Some schools are still enforcing their own rogue mandates and mitigation measures. At public school performances at New York City schools, only one parent is allowed to attend. You can't have two parents attend. Parent-teacher conferences are still going remote this year, so parents can't sit down face-to-face with their students' teachers, with their kids' teachers. It's still being done over Zoom. Parents who refuse to get the thing are not allowed to enter school buildings. NYU, the university, the college, still requires the thing in your arm and the updated things in your arm. Some taxpayer-funded museums and theaters still require the thing in your arm and the updated thing in your arm proof. Some require masks on some days and not other days, sometimes but not other times. The New York City Ballet still requires masks during auditions and practices, but not for performances. Broadway dropped its mask mandate, but people still continue to mask. The world is definitely not back to normal, and who knows if the world will ever get back to normal, but definitely at least for a number of years to come. Even though the beer cough is kind of over, a lot of the repercussions, a lot of the negative things that came about because of that are going to continue to linger. Let's talk a little bit, this is kind of another big picture discussion. Let's talk a little bit about AI. Bill Gates recently came out and said AI is going to change our lives forever as we know it. And it's also going to change SEO and how search engines work. So we heard the other day that Bing is allegedly using ChatGPT already. I went on to Bing.com, and on Bing.com, like on a computer, it actually looks kind of like ChatGPT. it looks like it may be an AI-based search engine, but when I would actually do searches, it would just kind of deliver normal search results. Now, I've heard that maybe you have to download the Bing app. I didn't feel like downloading the Bing app yet. I probably will wind up downloading it over the weekend and giving it a try. But think about how different search is going to be. And let me know how many of you guys are into SEO. And even if you're not an SEO or you're not super into like technical SEO, if you have a website, if you have a YouTube channel, if you sell on Amazon, everything is based around search engines and algorithms, right? Like when you sell something on Amazon, you're trying to figure out how to get the top of Amazon search. If you make YouTube videos, you're trying to figure out how to get your YouTube videos seen by the most people into the top of search. And if you have any type of website, you want to be at the top of Google. Now, one thing that kind of hurt search traffic for a lot of businesses, and especially a lot of informational websites, is Google years ago started doing featured snippets. So if you Google something like, at what temperature does water freeze, in the past you would have actually had to do the search, find a website, go read an article, and then pluck the piece out of the article where it tells you at what temperature does water freeze. Well, now Google has these featured snippets or knowledge boxes. So if you search at what temperature does water freeze, Google will present you with search results. It will present websites, but it will show like maybe anywhere from a couple sentences to a paragraph that it pulled out of that website or that article or that page, and it will highlight the part that's relevant to you. So it might pull out a paragraph and it'll be kind of bolded and it'll say water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit or blah, 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 whatever it is, Celsius. And what does that mean? That means that somebody can get an answer from your website without actually having to visit your website. You lose search traffic. That's one less person who may buy something from you. That's one less person who's going to see an ad impression on your website. And that kind of cut down on website visitors. Well, how AI is going to work, AI is going to use your website, my website, all the websites out there to educate itself and then deliver answers. And somebody doesn't have to go to your website. So this could really harm search traffic for really everybody, but especially if you have a website that has informational type content. Really the only type of things that people will have to visit your website for is commercial purposes like buying something. And even then, Google tries to make you pay them to be the person who gets the view of somebody who's looking to buy something. I think a lot of people make a big deal about AI and act like AI is the boogeyman. And there are things about AI that I don't like. One thing that I notice just in society in general, it seems like people are kind of longing for simpler times and a simpler society. You see a lot of Gen Zers who are very nostalgic about the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. They want Walkmans or old, candy bar phones and things like that. It seems like people are longing for simpler times. We're also seeing kind of a return of people wanting to get back to nature, get back to simpler living. More people are moving to smaller towns, rural cities. There seems to be a heightened interest in like homesteading and things like that. And so it seems like some people are kind of turning away from us becoming so hooked on technology. A lot of people act like AI is a boogeyman, but if you think about it, throughout history, people have always gotten upset about new technology and change. At one point, people were moving around in horse-drawn carriages and they didn't like cars. Some people didn't like printing presses. Some people didn't like the computer. Some people didn't like the internet. I remember, long time ago, my grandpa complaining that, if the cash register goes down at McDonald's, you kids don't even know how to make change. So people have been complaining about technology for a long time. Economies just kind of change and develop. Technology kind of creates new opportunities, and people just kind of have to adapt. But I think what's troubling and what people are worrying about with AI, I think the idea of technology making our lives easier or doing certain jobs, people were okay with it when it was menial work, when it was manual tasks, because that freed up people to work on more creative tasks and big picture things. But now we're at a point where AI is beginning to free us from creative tasks, right? So AI can write an article, AI can write a poem. We have sites like Midjourney that can create artwork. And, I guess it's the people whose work is potentially going to be affected by AI who are the ones becoming upset about this. But nonetheless, people seem to have a problem with the fact that AI and technology is starting to get into white-collar work, as well as kind of more creative endeavors. We kind of talked about this. Yahoo laying off 20% of staff, laid off 1,600 More to come later this year, and they're doing this to streamline operations. PayPal CEO Dan Schulman is set to leave at the end of 2023. It's probably a good thing for PayPal. PayPal has become kind of stagnant as a company. PayPal is no longer innovative. They no longer have the dominance that they used to have, and they're just kind of stagnant. Dan will remain on the board of directors, but he will be out as the CEO. I've kind of talked about this in some recent videos. You guys remember, like at one point, like 99% of people accepting payments online were using PayPal. Donation buttons on websites were PayPal. If you had an e-commerce store, you had to have PayPal or people wouldn't buy from you. Now I would say Shopify is probably the biggest e-commerce platform out there, and they're using Stripe as opposed to PayPal. We have more people doing Cash Apps. We have people using sites like Patreon and Subscribestar and other things to transact money, as opposed to everybody just sending money around via PayPal. At one point, PayPal and eBay were pretty much dominating e-commerce and buying things online, and both those companies just kind of went stagnant and kind of wound up getting left in the dust. I see a lot of people looking at PayPal like it might be a good opportunity to invest in. I just don't see PayPal doing anything really innovative, and then they do stupid things, right? Like they had the $2,500 misinformation fine that they said was a mistake, but then 2 weeks later, after kind of all the furious people kind of died down and things calmed down, they quietly put it back into their policy. So I don't see PayPal going away, but I also don't see PayPal having a bright future. The IRS wants info on Kraken users going back to 2016. Let's see, auto loan bubble. Okay, so this is interesting. I think this one came from The Hedge. Bank of America will start bundling EV charging stations with auto financing. So we've already talked about the used car bubble. A lot of banks are in trouble because they lent money on overpriced cars that a lot of people are probably going to walk away from in the next year or two. And now they're going to give people the ability to finance even more, right? Charging stations can cost anywhere from $200 to $2,000. And now when you buy an electric vehicle, Bank of America will also finance you getting a charging station. Here's an interesting article about the balloon, the Chinese spy balloon. Obviously, we shot it down, was it like last Friday? It was recovered, I want to say earlier this week, by the Navy. And Biden came out and said that even after ordering the military to shoot down a balloon, he said that this breach isn't a big deal. If it wasn't a big deal, why even shoot it down in the first place? The IRS is requiring employees who earn at least $20 a month in tips to keep a daily record of their tips to give to their employees. All of these tips are then required to be included on tax returns coming from, I guess, for example, a restaurant or coffee shop. And this comes on the heels of a lot of people criticizing the government and the IRS for kind of upping tax enforcement on the working class and not going after billionaires. If the government, if Joe Biden, if the IRS tells you they want to go after billionaires, be worried, because that means they're coming after the middle class. It's easy to say you're going to crack down on billionaires because everybody hates billionaires, but slowly those policies get trickled down to then millionaires and then 100,000aires, and then slowly down to the middle class and even the poor. Remember when Biden said, we're going to crack down on billionaires not paying their fair share, and the biggest thing he did was wind up making payment processors report $600 going through an account over the course of the year. That obviously wound up being such a big disaster that both the Republicans and Democrats tried to roll it back. And even right now, the IRS is illegally not enforcing it, right? If Congress passes something, if something goes through the government, the IRS is required to collect those taxes and required to enforce that. But even the IRS said, we're not going to do the $600 thing this year. We're not ready, which was kind of just an excuse. Billionaire Stephen Ross is betting big on South Florida. He says the exodus from New York and the Northeast will continue. He says people aren't just moving to Florida for retirement or for low taxes. They're moving there for jobs. They're moving there for security. They're moving there for ease of living. And he says South Florida will continue to be a desirable place to live and will continue to appreciate in price. And he has a bunch of housing projects down by West Palm Beach. Zero Hedge article, prostitution and pimping rises in California after prohibitive laws were repealed. Families are scared that they're having to walk the streets around prostitutes and pimps and all the drug problems and violence that comes along with that. But there is talk that San Francisco may actually wind up legalizing sex work and rolling out a red light district. So that would be interesting. Corporate America splurges on ads, on Super Bowl ads, despite a recession threat. Although on the other end of the spectrum, surprisingly, Super Bowl tickets are falling. Does that signal that Americans don't have the money to shell out thousands and thousands and even tens of thousands of dollars on Super Bowl tickets? I guess Super Bowl tickets have dropped below $5,000 per ticket, and obviously that's for the cheapest tickets. I think the article I saw said for the first time ever. I doubt it's ever because, obviously prices tend to go up over the years. I'm guessing way back in the day, some of the earlier Super Bowls tickets weren't that expensive, but tickets have dropped below $5,000 for the first time in a long time. Elon Musk has cut off Starlink for Ukraine, and Zelensky lashed out at him. February, we have cargo imports expected to see a huge drop. Lyft stock dropped 25% after a huge guidance miss and weak guidance moving forward. But on the flip side, Uber shares actually rose after reporting revenue and profit growth. So it's interesting that Uber is doing well and Lyft isn't. Cryptos tumble after Kraken agrees to shuttle the crypto staking operations to settle charges with the FTC. They'll pay $30 million and shut down staking programs as they, quote-unquote, allegedly involved unregulated securities. Top watch retailer shares crash as Rolex bubble deflates. Another ominous sign that the Rolex bubble deflates is a disappointing earnings report from Watches of Switzerland Group PLC, a top watch seller in the UK, and their shares plunged 16% overnight. The House Oversight Committee has, I'm not really sure what that's about. Sorry, guys, my notes are a little bit scrambled today. San Francisco could open up a red light district. So let's talk a little bit about housing. We would need 40% in income growth to get homes back into the range of affordability. This was interesting from Nintendo. Nintendo is raising wages 10% at the same time that other companies are cutting bonuses, cutting wages, and laying off employees. Nintendo's saying that they want to retain their employees, and they're raising wages 10%. So another article, inflation has a 75% chance of rising or staying high, according to top economist Mohammed El-Arian. And, for the past couple weeks, we've been getting reports that inflation's coming down. If you're like me, when you go to the gas station, when you go to the grocery store, you're not really seeing the prices go down. That's what the media is telling us. That's what the Fed is telling us. I don't know that that's actually the case, but now they're starting to report that it looks like inflation is ticking back up. I think the price of used cars was up like 2.5% in the last month. So another article, I think this one was from The Hedge. 5 times in recent history, the Fed and everybody has been wrong about a soft landing, right? So there's a lot of talk about, there's not going to be a terrible recession. There's not going to be a depression. We're in for a soft landing. Well, apparently 5 other times that everybody was wrong was 1973 to 1975, 1980 and 1981, 1982, 89 to 91, and 2007 to 2009. Let's see, government crackdown on crypto. On January 9th, Metropolitan Commercial Bank, so here we just kind of have a number of brief snippets or stories about the government cracking down on crypto. So on January 9th, the Metropolitan Commercial Bank, one of the few banks that serves crypto clients, announced a total shutdown of its crypto asset-related vertical. On January 9th, Silvergate stock falls to a low of $11.55 on a bank run and insolvency fears, having traded as high as $160 in March. On January 21st, Binance announces that due to policy at Signature Bank, they will only process user fiat transactions worth more than $100,000. On January 27th, the Federal Reserve denies crypto bank Custodia's 2-year application to become a member of the Federal Reserve System, citing safety and soundness. January 27th, the Kansas City Fed branch denies Custodia's application for a master account, which would have given it the ability to use wholesale payment services and to hold reserves with the Fed directly. February 27th, the Fed issues a policy statement which discourages banks from holding crypto assets or issuing crypto stablecoins and broadens their authority to cover non-FDIC insured state-chartered banks, a reaction to Wyoming's special purpose depository institutions like Custodia, which can hold crypto alongside fiat for its banking customers. Ultimately what this kind of comes down to, we got a few more to read, but ultimately what this comes down to is the government does not want you in control of your own money. They want to control the money systems so that they can print as much money as they want, and it just kind of gives them more control over everything. And also the government wants you buying their things, right? The government wants you buying CDs and government bonds. They don't want you buying stable coins and staking yourself or staking on some of these blockchains or staking with crypto exchanges. On January 27th, the National Economic Council releases a policy statement not explicitly banning banks from serving crypto clients, but strongly discouraging banks from transacting with crypto assets directly or maintaining exposure to crypto depositors. On February 2nd, the Department of Justice's Fraud Unit announces an investigation into Silvergate over their dealings with FTX and Alameda. On February 6th, Binance suspends USD bank transfers for retail clients. Binance US was not affected. On February 7th, the January 27th Fed statement is entered into the Federal Register, turning the policy statement into a final rule with no congressional review or public notice or comment period. And as of February 8th, Protego and Paxos applications to follow Anchorage to obtain full approval to become a national trust bank are still outstanding past the 18-month deadline and appears to be imminently denied by the OCC. So, excuse me, guys, I'm starting to get hoarse here. That is today's video. A little bit scatterbrained today. I wasn't super prepared for today's video, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully we had some interesting stories for you guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button down below. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts, comments, opinions, and anything else you have to add. So drop those down below as well. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, click that subscribe button down below and ring the bell. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.